3, 2, 1.
Here we go.
Everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Let's Dig In podcast. I'm your host, Chef Rich Rosendale, joined with my co-host today, the ever knowledgeable Ian Navarro. Today, we are diving into a tantalizing conversation with none other than the social media sensation and entrepreneur, Jake Karls, the mastermind behind Midday Squares. We'll explore his journey, insights, and of course, those delicious squares that took the internet by storm. Before we dive in to the episode, I want to say a special thank you to our treasured sponsors, Ovention Oven, Dry Ager, Steel Light International, Mila, and Well Built. And of course, Wearing Commercial. We work with a lot of equipment manufacturers, a lot of brands out there, and they really give us the ability to do a lot of really exciting things. Check out all of our sponsors. Everybody we work with, there's a reason for it. There's something special about the product, about the relationship, about the service of everybody that we work with. So please check them out when you get an opportunity. So without further ado, let's dig in with Jake Karls. Hey man, thank you very much for doing this. I know you got a super busy schedule. Just to give you a little bit of background, I was not familiar with the product. And then Ian and I, who had been friends for several years, working in lots of different capacities, had sent me your link and introduced me to the product. And I really just kind of connected with it without even tasting. I was like, wow, man, this looks really cool. And obviously loved your energy. And I'm a chef, but I'm an entrepreneur. So I like the outside of the box, kind of just different, just bringing the energy wherever you go. And it kind of really comes through in the product. So lo and behold, I went and bought some of the squares. My wife loves them. So we've gone through quite a bit in a couple of weeks. So
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
man,
you,
really.
I appreciate that. Well, Ian, thanks for introducing the product.
Yeah, of course. You came up on, my LinkedIn, and funny enough, I'm not nearly as active as you, but pretty active. And I had a brand call me 2 days ago that said, you came in like a thunderstorm on my LinkedIn and I had to reach out. And the same thing with you. The platforms that are available to people now, 90% of people, all they do is scroll, right? They don't actually engage and they don't post. And the people that post really stand out. And you said, hey, I'm looking to be on as many podcasts as possible, which is when I'm like, Rich, I think we need to interview Jake because what he's doing is shaking things up. And I also know, I've been in food distribution on the food service side for so long, and I know how hard it is to launch a brand and how exponentially harder it can be to launch a brand in retail.
Oh yeah.
Especially when you're thinking about the category, that you're in, right? And typically, I would say most buyers kind of brush off new startups like yourself. Yep. But the way that you guys have presented yourself has been incredible to where I'm sure now, the retailers are calling you. You're not having to go to the retailers. And so you've kind of had the opposite road that almost everybody has. And I think you've leveraged the platform to your advantage and then coupled it with a great product. So kudos to you.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's fucking hard, but it's day by day.
Yep.
Jake, why don't you, just for everybody that is out there that hasn't been introduced to the product, can you just kind of give us share with us the story, the background, your background, the product, how you got it named, how you got it started, what was the whole inspiration behind it?
Yeah, so Midday Squares, we launched August of 2018. That was when we officially launched the company. And it was me, my sister, and my brother-in-law. So family business, but we didn't become partners because we're family. We all have very different skill sets. So the complementary aspect was really value add. But before that, my brother-in-law and sister were actually eating and making this snack for like their hobby snack, a snack that they actually wanted in the afternoon for like 3-4 years. So 2.5 years they were making it before we launched the company. And my sister made it because my brother-in-law had an addict to eating chocolate an addiction to eating chocolate at like 2 p.m. every day. And he was having some good chocolate bars, like Lindt bars and stuff like that. But It's full of sugar and there's some palm oil and some stuff that, just didn't get along with his digestion system. He was tired. He lost his energy. It didn't actually fill him up. So she made him this snack because she's a foodie. And it was with clean ingredients. It was somewhat protein, fiber, good fats. and it kept him full. And he also satisfied that indulgence craving that he had daily. So fast forward 2.5 years after that, my brother-in-law read a report from a large food conglomerate that said that, dark chocolate as a category was growing very fast, and that vegan proteins, plant proteins, were also growing pretty fast. And in his head, him being a software engineer and a data guy, he's like, oh my God, Leslie, my sister, you're making a baby of these two massive growth categories, a dark chocolate bar that's made with real food ingredients and it's plant-based proteins. And that's when they realized that they had product market fit just from a data perspective. So they started sampling the product to people. They started to commercialize the product with a university here in Montreal called McGill. And long story short, they built the product over 8 months, commercialized it over 8 months, then came to me in July of 2018. They're like, hey, you're the best storyteller we know, best community builder. Can you join this as our third partner and blow up the brand? And I looked at them and I said, I love the product. It tastes delicious and it's amazing, but food and beverage is a very hard world to set apart yourself in marketing, because if you go to the supermarket, there's 20, 30, 40,000 products on a shelf. So I said to them, we don't have the budgets of Hershey's and Mondelez and Mars and all these amazing companies. So I said to them, well, how do you expect to win? And they're like, that's your job to figure out. And I looked at them and I said, give me a month to think about this. And I came back a month later in August 2018 with a game plan to launch Midday Squares. And it was basically, hey, we're going to use social media, which everybody's using as an entertainment and educational platform. And we're going to just tell them a story that actually resonates and is emotionally involved with the consumer as possible. And basically, we did a reality show on entrepreneurship, showing you as a consumer the good, the bad, the ugly of how we build the business, but not talking about the product. So talking about the drama of building a business. And long story short, when you went to the grocery store, the thesis was, if you watched our content, you actually felt like you were a friend or a family member or a neighbor of ours. So when you bought the product, you're like, hey, I'm supporting a friend. And that's what turned you into a fan or like I said, a close acquaintance or a friend of ours. And since then, it's been 5 years of absolute chaos. And the name Midday Squares is simple. Midday, it's a midday snack, and we want it to be that afternoon snack, and it's square formatted. So we want the consumer to have that easy process to program them to understand that this is an afternoon snack.
Right. Well, my wife likes eating it in the evening too. So
all night squares, right?
Yeah, right. So really, you guys kind of took the angle almost instead of thinking of people as like, customers, more as like trying to build the relationship rather than trying to come in hard with a sell, which a lot of large entities, that's like the marketing strategy is like, this is what we're trying to sell,
Yeah, and I think I love our industry. The food and beverage and grocery CPG world is super awesome. There's some great innovation, there's some great products and some great legacy brands that have been, been for 50, 60, 70 years. The problem is today's world, the marketing game has completely shifted from 5-7 years ago, even 10 years ago, where, all you have to do is put advertisement up in the past and billboards, TV ads, radio ads, magazine, newspapers, and you were able to get the attention of the consumer. Today, social media democratized the attention, basically giving it to the power to the consumer, no longer to the businesses with capital. Right. So for us, I realized if we could get into their attention span by basically giving them content that's emotionally connecting to them at a deeper level and just selling to them, then they'll opt into our content, want to watch it, want to be part of our journey, and again, feel like they're part of the business. So when they buy the product, they're not just buying it for themselves, they're telling friends about it, they're telling their family members, and they're advancing the business a lot faster than going to spend $100 million on, typical billboards or product feature ads, which in my opinion, no longer work.
Jake, when you say that you took like a month to kind of think about like what the strategy, the plan, how you would kind of grow this, a lot of people, whenever they want to launch a brand, they're like, oh, well, naturally I'm going to do a big social media campaign, but obviously something you're doing was different, like you kind of came in with like a different angle. I mean, did you think about like the style of the social media? I mean, you don't just, things don't just go viral. They don't just, a brand doesn't just become a sensation online without doing something right. Even though sometimes maybe there's a little bit of, sometimes you don't always even intend the outcome. It just kind of something takes off and resonates. But you obviously went in there with kind of a different strategy. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are kind of, they're back in that 2018 position where they're getting ready to launch and they know that TikTok and Instagram, all that stuff's relevant. But like, what did you kind of go in that you said, hey, here's how we're going to differentiate with some of your social media initiatives?
Well, I think that when I was looking into figuring out what we had to do to launch this business, I looked again at data. I looked at what was already working. So I looked at the TV world, which is the best entertainment, storytellers in the game. And I said, what was the most popular TV show? And at the time, Keeping Up with the Kardashians was one of them with the highest ratings. And then Shark Tank was another one. And I looked at these two shows and I said, hey, Kardashians, people love it because the drama, the hyperness, the craziness of the family drama. And I said, we're a family and we're a business, so it's kind of like dramatic in itself. And then I looked at Shark Tank and I said, people are starting to celebritize entrepreneurship because they're more curious about it. Kind of like how chefs were starting to get celebritized early in the 2000s with all the food TV shows and all that stuff. So I said, what if we were to take Shark Tank meets the Kardashians, have a baby with it, but instead of showing posh life, show the drama of building a business, but really show you the behind the scenes, the good, the bad, the ugly, things you never see on Shark Tank. That way we get you this deep, deep, deep show of what businesses never show consumers.
Right.
And then that way, my thesis was if they watch that, they'll become a fan. And then when you're a fan, you're either going to buy or tell people about the product. So that was the strategy at first. And we were 3 average people with no social media following. I think it was like 500 followers each maybe at the time. And what we did was we started filming with an iPhone. We started posting raw, unfiltered, non-edited stuff. And next thing you know, we went from 10 views to 50 views, 100 views, 200 views, 1,000 views, 10,000. Then it was getting to 100,000 and it kept going. And the reason why it kept going up was A, we stayed consistent. B, we were authentic to ourselves. We were genuinely unapologetically ourselves, and people either love or hate that, but they respect it either way. So you could hate someone, but you could respect it. And the third thing was we were telling an interesting story that wasn't the typical food and beverage story of here's our product. It's vegan, gluten-free, soy-free, dairy-free, whatever. We told you no. Here's how a machine just broke down and how it's going to affect our whole business and how we're going to lose potentially our company in the next 3 months if we don't fix it. And that type of emotionality resonated very deeply with the consumer.
Well, I also think that there's a component there that's like relatable to people whenever you're transparent. You don't come off as this, big entity that, is fake. It's like when you're kind of showing it out there and you're being honest and transparent with people about like, hey, here's where we're at. We're launching this thing, we're getting it built, and, showing the kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I also wanted to, this was actually really interesting timing, and reading your label of the Midday Squares actually kind of had an influence on something that we're doing. And I'm always, one of the reasons we do the podcast is I love learning and hearing other people's stories because it makes me better. It makes us better, our listeners better. But anyway, I was reading the label and we were getting ready to redo our labels on one of our spice lines. And one of the people, my advisors came back to me and was like, hey, Rich, just put spices on there. That's what the industry standard is. Nobody tells people what the secret sauce is and whatever. And I was like, wow, I feel like that's how it's always been. But people on Amazon were asking about like, hey, it just says spices. What else all is in here? And I was like, you know what? Put everything on there. We don't actually put the recipe. But if somebody tries to knock it off, they try to knock it off. But I really, that your product recently, this was just like a couple of weeks ago, kind of influenced that. And I said, I feel like where things are going, we don't have to always follow the same playbook with products.
I think I love that you did that. And I think that we as a society feel pressurized to go to the direction that everyone else is going, whether it's a business in the business world or the personal world. And for us, a lot of the time we like to have this concept or this motto that we like to say unaverage decisions equal unaverage outcomes and average decisions equal average outcomes. And what that means is basically if you put in an unaverage decision every single day, you're going to have an outlier output, meaning it's either going to be really great or really bad. It won't be average though. And the difference between that is if you just put average decisions in, you're going to get an average output just by statistics, right? So at least with an outlier output, you're either going to have good or bad, and good means great, whatever, you get a big win. Bad doesn't necessarily mean bad. A loss is not a loss. It's a learning experience. It's something that you have an opportunity to see that other people don't get to experience. So for us, our whole thing is go left when everyone's right. And that's led us to have more right than, as long as you're right more than you are wrong, you win big. And I think that that's where all the great leaders of the world have gone, is they've taken the path that's least traveled and they've taken something that's different. And I think with your spices, it's like, yeah, if it doesn't work, then you'll change it or you'll learn from it. If it works, you're the hero. So it's a win-win in my opinion. And I think that that motto needs to be more accepted or more inspired into our society today.
Right. And to really kind of be a differentiator, to have a product or whether it's social media, even though people tend to always look at what everybody else is doing, it's almost like kind of counterintuitive. It's like different than you want to do something different, and as you mentioned, it might not always be the right decision, but you got to kind of be a little bit out there, put yourself out there a little bit.
You have to. We're in a world today where people are, like you said before, scrolling. So like if you're sitting at home all day and you're keeping everything, building in silence, yes, there's an occasion for that makes sense. But in most cases, I say building out loud. You look at Elon Musk, he's either loved or hated, 50%.
Yeah.
But the 50% that love him are diehard fans, and they love who he is because he's unapologetic. But they also could support his 3 businesses that he has, right? So it's like, who cares if not everyone loves you?
Right.
It's like, you don't need that. As long as you're a kind soul or you're a good person, like, then go be you. And again, don't follow the herd, because if you follow the herd, you literally get drowned and you're in the noise where no one even cares. So it's like, if you want to build a big business, or you want to make deep relationships, then be yourself and be different, because you being yourself authentically is in itself a differentiating factor, because no one has the same DNA necessarily as you specifically. So that's automatically a differential factor. But most people, again, get influenced and become or try to be somebody else or another business.
Jake, I'm curious. We had several episodes ago, we had a friend of mine who was on the TikTok star, Ryan Peters, and he started doing some posts and stuff during the pandemic, and then like overnight just kind of like blew up. Was there like a point with Midday Squares and whenever you're doing the social media campaigns that was kind of pivotal, where you thought like, wow, man, I think we really got something special here? Or was it kind of more of a steady drum beat?
I think we had a steady drum beat, and I'll tell you why. We focused on foundation and long game since the beginning, meaning that we didn't try to go viral. We have viral videos that have hit many millions of views, and many of them actually. But that wasn't the goal. Our way of looking at everything is, does this content that we put out make us feel something deeply inside? And I'm talking about our team. Right. And if it does, then we release it. And it doesn't make a difference if it gets 1,000 views or 10 million views. Obviously, there's 10 million's better. But as long as we are adding some sort of value, we believe, to us, then it's going to add someone to somebody else. And that's what we've done since day one, and that strategy has worked. And we don't have the biggest following. On Instagram, we must have, 126,000, TikTok, maybe 200 and something thousand, and then LinkedIn, another 30,000 or so, Facebook, another 30, whatever it is. But those people that follow us are diehards. They're part of our journey. They watch it, they care, they actually engage. So I know brands that have 10, 20 million followers and very little people, little community engagement. Right. And we just didn't want to be that brand. I think that that's where, when you chase virality, you might hit it, but it's not necessarily a stronghold. It's almost like a house of cards. Right. So for us, we're on the long game. And I think that just takes a lot of patience, and you got to trust your gut and stay true to that. And if you do, you'll have a massive, massive reward by the end of by whatever the end is for you.
Yeah. And also too, I really appreciate, you making time to do the podcast with us, because it's also, as being an entrepreneur and building a brand, I mean, it takes a huge equity of time. And, you gotta also like pay the price as far as like be engaged with your audience. And social media is a lot of work, but I think, not caring about like the content that you're putting out there. I feel like people, they can tell, they can see if it's real or if it's just like, as you mentioned, like just trying to go viral. And I think that is that authenticity. I think it helps build a relationship, and also kind of starting off as a new brand in a big, huge section of what consumers eat. it's hard. So it's almost kind of like, I think people probably feel connected as almost even as a stakeholder in the growth and the success of Midday Squares as they feel like they've kind of been part of the journey as because you've shared it with them.
It's super, exactly. And that was the whole thing. It was like, in order for us to win big, you need two things. You need product market fit. So your product must be good in terms of for the market that's out there. And then the second thing is you need a great story. And then the third thing I would say is authenticity. But if you have those three things, you're setting yourself up for as much success as possible. That being said, it doesn't guarantee it, but it could give you the best chance of getting there. And again, when consumers are on the journey with you or feel part of it or feel part of your community, they're going to do a lot more than just buy your product on a transaction. They're going to shout about it. They're going to embrace it. They're going to acquire you new customers. They're going to get you investors and journalists, everything. And it just takes a little bit more care and love. In our world, unfortunately, today, I find that there's less and less of it. So when you do it, it shines bright.
Right.
There's a couple of thoughts to this. I saw a quote: confidence is not they will like me. Confidence is I'll be fine if they don't like me. And social is one of those that's very awkward, right? Like even from a selfie standpoint, where I don't like the way I sound, the way I look, so I'm not going to do it. And, you touched on authenticity is key, but consistency in social is also key, right? You can't just post once a day and think that that's going to be enough. And as a brand, regardless of the industry you're in, are you using a staged image that you pulled off Shutterstock or Unsplash, or are you using original content? Attention lives at the palm of our hands. The average American touches their phone 300 plus times a day, or engages with their phone, right? The reality is it's the TV, it's the radio, it's our debit card, it's the entertainment factor, it's our photograph device, like everything about it. So, I talk to a lot of brands out there that struggle with this idea of what social media is and just not really understanding it. But I think it's just do it, just take the steps, and through those actions, you'll get to an end result.
Exactly. It's like, just go. Like what, and just there's nothing, the perfection is not relatable. So we all know that nothing's perfect in this world. Even if you're the number one, it's not perfect. Michael Jordan, the GOAT, was not perfect. He still became the GOAT. And I think that once you take that into effect and you understand that, then sharing is not so bad. And I think that worrying less about, I guess, your ego, I guess what others think of you is like it's like almost like you're in this cage and you have the key to get out, but you choose not to use the key. So you're suffering. And the reason being is, if you just let it out, I think, and you let yourself be you're going to feel good eventually. It's going to naturally feel good because it's going to take less effort. When you try to be somebody else, or you're trying as a brand to be perfect or not so authentic, there's so much work with that and effort and keeping up with it and understanding. And it's just cringe at the same time. So I don't know. I think you're right. Like with attention today, it's at the palm of your hand, and everyone has the opportunity to get that as long as you are telling a good story and you're authentic. I think those two things will really resonate.
Jake, with innovation with the brand, do you guys have, I know you're really kind of early in the runway of the company, but do you guys talk or have like a vision for, new products, or do you want to kind of stay right in this niche? What are, kind of the thoughts on that for the future?
Yeah, innovation's key. We own our manufacturing, so we could actually do our own we can control we control the whole operation. We don't co-manufacture our products. But I think for us, what we like is the Powerade model, or the Gatorade model, where it's tight SKU count, you get known for what you do, and then over time you can make adjacents down the line. But for now, chocolate, we call it a functional chocolate bar. We're staying true to that. We have 4 SKUs right now at about 7,500 stores across Canada and the United States. And we're just focused on depth, selling the velocities, making them high, and in getting known for these types of chocolate bars. We might have 2 more SKUs coming out with new flavors, new innovations. And then we might do like formats, like multi-packs and things like that will add to the SKU count and make the consumer have a better experience. But other than that, until we're at about 150 million in revenue, we're not going adjacent or anything like that, because we want depth and to be known for this specifically. And, even over time, like you can see my shirt, it says MDS. We're moving more towards MDS rather than Midday Squares, because MDS sounds just more, it's easier and it's broader over time that we can get into things. But for now, we're still midday squares, and our product is that functional chocolate bar. So that's our innovation pipeline
Awesome.
/ strategy.
Yeah, and I was thrilled. Like I said, whenever Ian first introduced me, I checked with I was putting my Instacart order together, and Wegmans had your product, so I was thrilled, and I added that to the first order, and then of course I've picked up several since then. So that's great. So and you guys you're in Canada. That's
Yep.
where is that where you're originally from?
I'm born and raised in Montreal, Canada, and we're based here. We built our factory here, so we ship everything from Canada to the US and obviously over to Canada. But our business is growing faster in the United States. We sell at
Really?
Target, Whole
Yeah.
Foods, Wegmans, Sprouts, a lot of other great retailers too. And what's hard is mostly the execution at the sales level, like at the store level. Basically, our product's in the refrigerated section, right, which makes it a lot harder to find it.
Right.
So our product needs to be kept stocked all the time and checked on, and that requires us to have people of our own team in the stores, not externals. And so we're building out a kind of right now like a mini pseudo DSD network, which is kind of cool. It's kind of like the Pepsi strategy, but really, really early stage, right? So like it's going to be interesting to see what that looks like in 5 years.
Jake, was it hard to kind of break into the US market? I mean, you said now it's really popular, but is there any kind of growing pains as far as like with, distribution and, getting product approved, or was it not as challenging as you thought?
Well, it's definitely one of the most challenging things to cross border. A lot of Canadian brands, unfortunately, have amazing companies here that do extremely well. And then they head to the southern border like the US, and then they struggle because it's a way bigger country. The habits and the retail experiences are actually different. Even though we are Western culture, both of us, both in Canada and the United States, we still like different things and we shop in very different ways. So you can't mix that up because the way you communicate, the way you talk, the way you engage is different. So we learned that early on, and our strategy originally was just to start in city by city and then grow nationally over time. But we actually took on an account like Sprouts eventually, and that took us within 23 states. So we had to figure a way to grow, our market in the United States and our awareness. And TikTok was a big help at the time. We started hitting those viral videos, which were getting, a lot of Americans to see our product. And then slowly influencers we would work with that loved our product, that had massive followings in the regions that we were selling in, they would talk about our product. So we had like this strategy that went out, and now it ended up working. Over all that time and energy that was put in 2 years ago ended up paying off now. But it was very hard. It's very hard to open a new country. You have to understand the culture. You have to understand the system of retail that's different. And then also figure out your own back-end logistics, shipping it, getting it there. Like, it's a different game. It's not the same. You're dealing with customs. It's not just, hey, ship to a different city, it goes right there. No, you have to stop at the border. They have to check it and then keep going from there. So we've looked at options to build a factory in the US, and that might happen in the future. But right now we're still here. We're manufacturing here. We still have capacity. But again, it might happen in the near future that we build a plant in the Midwest of the United States where it ships both all over the United States and maybe even Mexico.
Very cool. Yeah, because if you look at the sequence of making a product and it ending up, getting dropped off by a delivery at someone's house in another, across the border in another state. I mean, it's pretty wild. I mean, it's really like the product has to stand up consistency wise and the quality. And, as a chef, I mean, I'm always thinking about that whenever I put a menu together. It's like, it's not what I can do, but I got to mobilize my team around me to be able to execute it and to kind of, clear the path so all those variables are out of the way so that it's going to be consistent every single time. And, it's just, I'm always just fascinated with that process of getting a brand. It's more than just the marketing. It's like the proof is in the pudding. It's got to be a craveable, yummy product. Like we reordered it a few times now just because it's a really great product. So, that is, like I said, the proof is in the pudding,
The most important thing, even more than storytelling and authenticity, is having a good product. Without that, you're nothing. You can make a little pump and dump, intention wise, and get the views. But at the end of the day, they got to keep coming back or you don't have a business.
Do you consider like the product with the MDS to be sustainability and health? Are those like are those big components as far as it being kind of like considered? I mean, I think of it as kind of a
Yeah.
healthier. I almost kind of don't want to, label things as like, health food or whatever, but it's, from a nutritionally dense product compared to the products that are out there in that space. From a health perspective, it's a better option for you. So
yeah, we call it a functional chocolate bar. We like to be a chocolate bar because we're still dark. We are dark chocolate, but like quite dark chocolate. But so you get the indulgence and satisfy the craving for that. And then we have the functional side, the plant proteins, the good fiber, good fats, and it fills you up for 2-3 hours. So it doesn't make you a tummy hurt and all that jazz that a lot of artificial stuff do. So yes, we are from a sustainable standpoint creating, we have fair trade chocolate, obviously, but we are a cleaner labeled product, which is super important. And the second thing is, I think from a brand perspective, we're so transparent that that's sustainable in itself.
Right.
Because we're not trying to be somebody else. We're not lying to you. We're showing you that you could be you and still win in life, win big if you say. So that type of inspiration is making an effect on both entrepreneurs and just people that are working in the professional world. They're seeing that the more they are themselves, the better they are. And I think we've gone so lost as a society, like I said before, in being somebody else or trying to be perfect, that this is necessary right now.
Right. And I do think that a lot of people sometimes with things that they buy, they almost like want to see themselves through the product, that there's an alignment with some of the things that are important to you and important to the brand. And, I feel like you used to be able to get away with that, for many, many years. But I feel like people now, there's other boxes they're checking whenever they buy a product.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, I think there's a sense of community and connection, right? The people that wear Lululemon or in the culinary world, if you have a Headley and Bennett, apron, there's a certain, lifestyle that it communicates with. Have you ever, are you guys exploring the food service world? Are you guys currently in KeHE and UNFI or?
Yeah, we sell with KeHE and UNFI to our grocery stores. Food service would be awesome. I think, we would do, and I think more on the food service side, like more like coffee shops though, or like juice bars or salad bars. I think that's where we would optimize. Again, but it's a whole other distribution channel in terms of how you get it there. Maybe KeHE and UNFI do it. I don't know. But we would love to explore like a one day, like getting into like, honestly, like a Starbucks, like, one of our competitor brands are in there and I'm pretty sure it does well. So I think there's so much opportunity for these kind of functional snacks that are still indulgence in these types of places. But again, we need a refrigerated section. So one day that is a goal of ours. I think that's a great alternative revenue source and a brand and a very important branding piece.
One of the things that you've been off product, but maybe you as a product that you're vocal about is mental health and therapy. I think every industry is susceptible to mental health and not as many people talk about it. But, how has you being open to vocalizing where you sit helped you or helped others?
Yeah, I think, when we started, my partners basically told me that if I wanted to join as the third founder, that I would have to do therapy with them, which, in my opinion at the time, I was naive and I was just like, oh, I'm the happiest guy. I don't need therapy. It means like you're weak, or it might mean that you're weak or less of. And I was like, that was the way I thought immaturely back then. And then they said, well, then we can't do this business together. And I looked at them, I thought they were crazy. And they're like, just try 5 sessions. And if you don't like it, then we could stop the company. And I was like, okay, fine. Did the 5 sessions. And after the 5 sessions, I realized this is a very powerful tool. And it's actually empowering. And you're a winner if you do it and embrace it, because it's just making you a better leader, a better person, someone that's potentially more empathetic, somebody that can actually listen more than you talk. Understanding communication is probably one of the most important skill sets in today's world, because humans are very complex. So me and my partners and I go to these therapy sessions. We have very hard conversations and it keeps it in a safe zone, but it also allows us to have a healthy debate where we get somewhere and we still love each other after. So it protects our family relationship and our business partnership. So I've become a huge advocate for therapy, where I go now once or twice a week, once by myself and once with my partners, because it's a place where I feel like I'm becoming better. And if I can become better every day, then I think I've won life, right? So I think it plays a role everywhere. And I think that hiding or shying away from it is a danger zone. And also thinking that it means that you're weak, like I thought, or that you're like lesser than, is a really bad way of thinking and so incorrect. And it goes to show you could flip completely your side. Like I was the extreme other side, and then I'm now almost the extreme advocacy side of it, right? So that's my journey with mental health.
Jake, I've seen some of the videos of like different things where you've talking and in various events where you're a guest speaker and stuff. Do you try to capture almost, I guess, obviously when you're doing social media, you can create content, but sometimes there's also the opportunity to maybe kind of document like what you're already doing. Do you always kind of have somebody there trying to capture like every moment, or do you try to like carve out some time to say, okay, I'm going to work on some media content? What's kind of the strategy? Because there's a lot of budding entrepreneurs out there that are wanting to kind of get their brand out, and they're, and for a lot of people, social media can be really intimidating. So how do you, with such a busy schedule, how do you kind of organize that to make sure you're coming up with great content all the time?
So we have a team internally now at Midday Squares, which we have that film us. So it's like a media company within our company, and they basically document and our journey, so that one day we could have potentially a docuseries of all the B-roll that actually happened. So sometimes I get them to come film, but a lot of the time I actually want to do it myself, just because I'm like, you know what, I want to learn this. I want to understand how to. And my team is so already busy with so much content for the business, the brand, Midday Squares, that, to fly them with me to these locations and all that stuff, it's a lot of work and a lot of time and effort. So I've learned to take time and just do it myself. That being said, I use a lot of the content that they create as well, like my team. But that didn't happen at the beginning. At the beginning, we had nobody. It was just the three of my partners and I. So we did it ourselves for like almost like a year.
Wow.
And then we hired like a videographer, I think a couple months into our business, but we realized how difficult it was to capture and operate at the same time, because it's really difficult. So you wear all these hats, but then you don't optimize, right? So we always said to ourselves, let's get people that have strengths, bring them in for our weaknesses, and that's it, and play to our strength while we have people playing to their strengths. That helps, win big, in my opinion.
Awesome. So what are probably the for somebody that's like kind of really getting started and they want to launch a new brand, obviously authenticity is a huge one. Kind of, I think when you say like trying to tell your story, I almost feel like it's like trying to find your voice. Like, what is it that you want to say? Like, and even a brand, a logo, everything, the whole DNA of a company says something, it's just like, it speaks to people. Is there any tips that you would give to somebody that maybe they're trying to launch a brand and maybe they're kind of hitting some speed bumps along the way? Like what kind of advice would you give to people? Because it's just, from the outside looking in, you guys are this, sensation with your product and your brand and all these things going viral. But a lot of people, they feel like they're kind of posting, and they just kind of keep hitting snags. What advice would you give for people like that?
I would say two things. Block out the noise and stop comparing yourself to people. There's a lot of noise out there, and that noise can take you off your game. And then comparing yourself to people is just, it's not real. Like everything's relative. So like, you get caught away and then you're off your game. Like you are special because you have your own game that's special. So stay focused on that. And virality won't hit, but when it does, if you stay consistent and you keep creating great content, you will be rewarded one way or another. So patience is very important in that scenario, because I understand, I've been through the times where I've compared myself and I've taken the noise in, and I'm miserable when that happens. I'm off my game. I do bad work. I'm in a bad mood. And I realize that that's all just fake news, in my opinion. It's just not real. And, I start, when I go down those paths, I start to like, honestly not be I start to feel like I don't want people to win, which is the weirdest thing, because to me, my whole motto is to spread good vibes and cheer on others that are being themselves and winning. They're inspirations to me. They're inspirations to many others. And when I'm in those zones of comparing and listening to the noise, I'm the opposite. And it's a horrible feeling. You feel like you feel dirty. It's like kind of, humans are supposed to elevate each other, not tear each other down.
I I appreciate you being so honest about that, because I feel like a lot of times people, they don't want to admit that there's those feelings that kind of creep up, where you are comparing yourself and stuff like that. But ultimately, it really does kind of erode away your own energy. And,
Yep.
Positive energy is contagious. And obviously, I think that's why I was really excited whenever Ian shared with what you guys were doing, because I just thought, I was like, wow, this is really cool. I want to learn more about this, because I think that that's really what, people want. They want to kind of they want to occupy their time with something that's going to make them feel good. And there's just continuity with, with those vibes, as you say. So
Positive momentum. How do I like this? Momentum is contagious in either positive or negative. If you have positive momentum, you're moving forward. If you have negative momentum, it can spiral very fast the other way. So
Right.
I always encourage people, choose positivity. You have that option, right? It's a choice, and you can either sit there and sulk, or you could turn things around. And I always say, it always takes one little thing to just pump you back up and put you
Right.
back on track. So you're never that far from it, even when your worst case scenarios, your worst. There's always that one little tip. Walk one step forward, and I promise it will just keep going.
Well, I've got just a few more questions here. I know this has been awesome, Jake. I think really cool. You're every bit kind of what I imagined talking with you would be like, just from the energy on all the videos and the social media. So it's really cool, and I think there's a lot of great takeaways for people here, because a lot of people, like I said, they're kind of everybody's on their own path. They're trying to find their own journey, and there's aspects of principles of like what other people are doing that, you're not trying to mimic and do exactly the same thing, but there's, philosophies and principles that are helping you kind of guide you through your own journey. But I think that can be applied to a lot of different businesses, regardless of wherever you are on the runway of the growth. But I wanted to ask, with Midday Squares, is there any kind of vision for like goals for like within the next 5 years? And then also, do you guys have any like exciting plans, anything kind of cool that's on the horizon that we can share with the listeners?
I think our main focus is get to $100 million in the next 2 to 3 years in revenue. And that's all. And the margin profiles that we're going for. And once we do that, then we can look at what's next. Right now we have a game plan put in place to get there. And if we stay focused, we execute and do what we say we're going to do, we'll get there, and that will be a win. That will be a huge win in terms of our business and our fulfillment as well. Otherwise, exciting stuff. Yeah, we're building a cool brand. We're expanding in the US. We're going to be doing new, potentially down the line, multi-packs, which is something really good for the consumer that they've been asking for. And we're just going. I don't think there's anything like big moments. Things happen on the go out of nowhere that are huge sometimes. So like those are the stuff that I like, those serendipitous things. But that's where we're at, and that's what we're focused on.
Awesome. And what social media channels can people learn more about what you're doing and the Midday Squares? Where are the ones that you probably spend the most time on?
TikTok at Midday Squares, LinkedIn at Midday Squares, and Instagram at Midday Squares. Otherwise, if you want to follow me and in my journey, it's just Jake Karls. Add me on LinkedIn, hit me up, or Instagram. I'm happy to engage. But that's typically where we spend most of our focus.
Awesome. And also too, I just, extended an invitation. If you're ever in the DC area, please let me know. Love to be able to introduce you to the team here and go have some food at the restaurant or whatever.
Yes.
And
I love that. I'm fired up.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Ian, anything else?
Last question for me would be, any pivotal moment that, are like, wow, I never knew that about this side of the business. You came from, a different sector and you're learning the retail segment, but something that has stood out to you from a brand building perspective that you were like, oh, wow, I never knew that was part of the game.
I think the stuff is that retail is very slow. It's very bureaucratic. It takes a lot of time to build a very successful business. at retail. And the second thing is we made a pivotal moment when we did a UPC code change. And for anyone that's going to do that, be very careful. When you do a UPC code change, when you change your actual data entry, code in retail, the data gets erased at the distributor level. So they don't buy as much, and the retailers don't buy as much because they're considering it potentially a new item. And that new item brings you back down. So we did that change. And we also did that change, not knowing that. And then we also, our barcode was too small to even scan in stores. So none of our products were scanning. It was $1.5 million mistake, and it could have been changed for $20 on like a stupid website. So just to double check if the barcode would scan. So those are two things that are pivotal moments in our business of learning. But I love retail. I love our partners that we get to work with. We have some amazing, retail partners, and we're just trying to win big. And again, deliver a great tasting, healthier chocolate bar that is a brand that's relevant.
Is there a retailer, in your opinion, that's kind of shaking things up, in the US or Canada that's like, wow, that's an incredible experience?
So we have many. I think they're all different. You've got Whole Foods does a great job. Sprouts is one of my favorite retailers. And then in Canada, you have Sobeys and Metro are shaking things up for us. And I think Target was our number one store in terms of revenue and volume. And they have a nice little set for us because they built a nice refrigerated category that we really like.
Jake, anything else that you want to mention that we didn't cover?
No, I just want to send you guys good vibes, and I appreciate you having me. And I hope we get to connect in person one day.
That would be awesome, man. Thank you very much. I mean, this was really a great conversation. I mean, you and the product, Midday Squares, I think it's been an inspirational thing in the short time that I've been introduced to it. It's been really kind of cool. I mean, I love the energy that you guys are putting out. We're looking forward to following the rest of the journey. And best of luck. Look forward to seeing you in person one of these days.
Let's all go win.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jake. Take care.
Bye, team.
Yep.
Hey, everybody, that wraps up another enlightening episode of the Let's Dig In podcast. A huge thank you to Jake Karls for sharing his incredible journey and insight with us. And of course, always a pleasure with our co-host, Ian Navarro. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment, like and subscribe, and leave us a review. Your support helps us bring more engaging content to our audience. And also check out our sponsors. They're great partners: Ovention Oven, Dry Ager, Steel Light International, Mila and Well Built, and of course, Waring Commercial. Their support makes the episode like this possible. Until next time, keep digging into life's delicious moments, stay curious, and stay hungry.